You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All righty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. How we doing tonight, Kevin?
Doing good, man. Doing good. So made it. I'm still having anxiety issues, I think is what I'm going to call them, from the Georgia-Ohio State game on New Year's Eve. Wow. That was crazy. That was a great day of football.
Yes, it was.
Great day of football. It came out of championship weekend, relatively unscathed. I mean, I was in 9. I went 4-1-2, right? And so I feel pretty good about that, and I understand the 2 and all the things that people are doing. But I mean, relatively, hell, I'll take 4-1-2 in. Is that right? I think I'm missing a game. Maybe it's 5-1-3 or 5-1 and question mark, because our co-owning Zombie League, we're waiting to hear what we're doing there, right? So that one's still up in the air. But regardless of good weekend, right? It was a good time to end the year. It was fun hanging out with the kids while they finished up, their Christmas break and had some extra time off around the house and got to hang out and really just wife and kids. And I didn't watch as much football as I thought I was going to, but the little bit that I did watch, I really enjoyed. So overall, it was good, man. How was yours?
I can't complain, right? Like that, the Big 12 finally managed to pull out a victory in the college football, playoff there. I was a little sad it wasn't an Oklahoma team that managed to do that, but man, like that was a great game that just got us like kicked off, going. And then you got followed that up with that Georgia-Ohio State game. And, the one thing I kept thinking about, and I kept going through that, right? Like, I know you're happy your Bulldogs pulled it out there. I'm not a Ohio State fan at all. So I tend to root for kind of anybody but Ohio State, right? So I was rooting for Georgia. But as I was going through this one and I was looking at this thing, I was watching this, and the only thought that kept coming through my mind as we were getting down there towards the end, and when Ohio State had the lead, and then they kind of did that march, and they were getting ready for the kick. I'm like, oh man, if this turns out to be an Ohio State to TCU championship matchup, this is going to be a basketball score championship game, right? Like this is going to be one of those where the championship is going to be crowned off of whoever just doesn't make a mistake on the offensive side, because you're probably going to see a score end where both teams are in the 60s or even the 70s on this one. Like it was, both of those teams just seem to put up points quick, fast, in a hurry, and defenses second nature in a lot of cases, it seems like. So that was the one thought that kept kind of coming through my mind was, what we could see a national championship where the over under for a football game is triple digits. Like we very well could have seen that one. So that was that would have been very interesting there to see the least on that one. Gitz has a comment for us. I need 12 points from Higgin to win the chip. What's happening? Gitz, that's we don't know, right? And I don't think anybody out there really knows. And if they do, they've got sources the rest of us don't. The NFL has come out and said that they're not going to play that game this week. I know, depending upon there's some things that you and your commissioner and you and your league mates need to determine and figure out there as far as how you guys are going to proceed with that and how you guys are going to go about doing that. I've seen some leagues out there where they allowed for players that were in last night's game to be swapped out with guys on the bench. And they were obvious swap outs, right? Like it wasn't one of those that you had somebody explode on your bench that you wouldn't have had in there and, anyway, but, logical swaps on some of that stuff. I've seen that come through. I've seen it where the two people playing in the league championship just decided to split it and be co-champions on that one because of some of the polarity on that and some of the issues that have come up with that. I've seen any number of things. And what I would tell you is that this is one that you and your league mates are going to have to come to a consensus and come to a decision on that one, and figure out how you guys as a league are going to handle that one. I don't know that there's a right answer. I don't know that there's necessarily a wrong answer on that one, but that's one that each league is going to need to decide on their own. Any other thoughts on that one?
Some sites, I know Sleeper has come out and said, and I think there's another one.
Yeah, Sleeper like finalized all the games on there. I just saw that one.
They finalized them, but they added in, if this game gets played, like there's a commissioner option that if this game gets played, it retroactive scores for those players on your roster in week 17. So I know Sleeper's doing that. Is it RT Sports? I think RT Sports is doing something like that. I haven't seen anything from ESPN. A lot of these guys, they're trying to be extremely sensitive of the situation that's going on with Damar Hamlin. And without getting into the weeds on this, it is a tragic freak accident, right? That no one ever wants to see happen. It's a shame that it happened at all. It's a shame that it happened on national television for so many people to see. It's a shame that these guys had to watch their brother, their teammate, their, the person who goes to war with them every week, go through something like that. So I guess first and foremost, we wish a full and speedy recovery. Our thoughts and prayers are with Damar Hamlin, and his family. And as a fantasy sector now, we have to make those decisions, right? Ultimately, if it's less, if it's $100 league or less, probably, if you and the other person in the championship are good with it, just split it. Like, there's not going to be an easy way of having this conversation.
No.
Right? Like, you're instantly the bad guy if you say, we need to find a way to play this out. This is, BS, blah, 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 blah. And I understand that. So I've been in some of those myself. I've had to make some of those decisions, and not leagues that I'm running, but leagues rising in the championship. I would 0.3 points separated. I'm behind by 0.3 points. It's one of the leagues that I'm taking a tie in, right? Like we decided to split it. I had Burrow and Diggs. Was I going to get there? Yeah. I mean, there's no way around it, but it's unfortunate. It's crazy that it happened this week. Obviously, the NFL is trying to be uber sensitive to what's going on. Obviously the players have tons of, and I don't mean this in a bad way, tons of thoughts and opinions about the whole situation. All that's fine, well and good. But for each individual league, you guys are going to have to put it to a vote, right? What do we do? Do we split it? Do we, not count week 17 and run the matchup in week 18?
Right. I've seen some leagues
call
do that
that
as well.
good. Okay, fine. Do we see if they replay this game and then use those points, plug it back in, and kind of manually score that to determine it? Like, there's a number of different ways. There's no right or wrong way. It's really whatever you and your league mates can come to a decision on. And unfortunately, this is just going to have to be the way that most of our fantasy seasons end, with two high-profile, highly owned teams worth of fantasy assets in a game that got called short because of a extreme unforeseen tragedy.
Right. And so you hit it perfectly, and Gitz, you said it there as well, right? I'm going to ask the league owner and the other guy in the championship just to split the money, but I don't know. That's all you can do, right? Like you and your league mates need to come to a decision, and that's what it is, right? And it should be a decision where everybody walks out of there feeling that they got to voice their thought, they got to voice their opinion, and you as a league came to a decision as far as what's best for your league and how to move on from that. So that's kind of the advice I've given anybody that's asked, is that there's no one singular answer on this one. It's going to come down to how you guys want to proceed as a league, and whether that's an 8-person, 10-person, 12-person, whatever. That's however you as that group of people decide to proceed with this one, and whether that's allow substitution, you split it, you push the championship game into week 18, like whatever you guys decide, that's what it needs to be, and that's what it needs to do. And that's where it's going to be. And I've seen some leagues that just give the player what he was projected. Yeah, I've seen that one as well, right? So there's a multitude of ways that you can handle this one, and that's where you and your league just need to decide what it is that we want to do, how we want to handle this one, and that's what it is, and that's where we go for and go on from there. So, but yeah, any other thoughts here from this weekend, and some. Yeah, there were some interesting games out there, both on the college side and the professional side of things.
Yeah, I mean the Niners Raiders game was extremely interesting. I'm not quite sure what happened to San Francisco's defense, but Jarrett Stidham looked like an All-Pro against the best defense in the league. So that was crazy. The Broncos offense seemed, if they played the Chiefs every week, they'd be fantasy relevant, guys.
Right? Holy moly.
As crazy as that sounds, the 2 games against the Chiefs are probably their 2 best games of the season. So if the Broncos played the Chiefs every week, we wouldn't be bashing on them. They'd be 0-16, they'd be 0-16, but they'd be fantasy relevant, right? You'd have your top 10 quarterback in, in Wilson, and you'd have a stout 2-headed running back crew. Jerry Jeudy would have done, and Sutton both. They'd both be top 24 wide receivers. Like, I mean, holy smokes. So that was crazy. Tampa Bay finally uncorked, right? Mike Evans absolutely went off. He's been silent the last 5 weeks, and boy, did he show up big for those of you who trusted him on Championship Sunday. So kudos to you. The Travis
Justin Jefferson dud.
Jefferson was a dud, right? Jefferson, and really outside of TJ Hawkinson, people weren't starting KJ Osborne. So it's super deep leagues, right? You might, 16 team leagues. Yeah, you might have started KJ Osborne if you're playing 3 receivers and 2 flexes or something like that. So, okay, fine. But TJ Hawkinson was really the only guy who showed up. The rest of that Vikings team was non-existent. Heck, even Daniel Jones had a respectable performance against the Colts, right? Like, he got you there. It was Ramondre Stevenson crapped the bed for the 2nd week in a row, right? Like, that offense has completely fallen off the rails. So, I mean, there were some boom and busts, and unfortunately, it got capped the way that it did. But that game aside, Austin Eckler, Mike Evans, Tom Brady,
Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, both top 5 backs. Like, holy smokes.
Like those were league-winning guys because they did it in championship week, right? So, our Eagles that we'd been so dependable all year long,
right?
It finally caught up to them. Dallas Goedert was serviceable, but not nearly what he was doing.
Right. Devonta Smith had a fairly decent game there.
And Deshaun Watson, the yardage wasn't there, but the 3 touchdowns were. I mean, if you're playing 6 points for a touchdown, boom, you're at 18 before he even does anything else. So, I mean, that helps. So there were some guys, Amari Cooper hadn't shown up in weeks, right? Only 3 catches, but when 2 of them go for touchdowns and they're long touchdowns, guess what? He gets you there. So there were some definitely shining stars here in week 17 to help propel you to a fantasy championship. And hopefully you had more of them on your roster than you went up against.
Yes. Devontae Adams was another guy we absolutely exploded with. Jared Stidham there. Like, that was one of those that Raider game took me by complete surprise. Like, that was just holy smokes, what happened here type of thing.
Yeah.
But, Tyler Algier was another one that came out the woodworks and had a really, really good game. And in fact, the Falcons had 2 top 11 running backs this past week, which kind of crazy to think about, but they managed to get that one done. So in a game that really wasn't very good, like that was not a very good game. So
not Najee, right? Najee,
right.
for being absent 90% of the season, Najee showed up and as your RB2 got the job done, right? Like you drafted him as a 1, and throughout the season you had to find other roles for him to fill. And if you got to a championship and had him in your lineup, A, kudos to you for navigating the waters, and B, that first round pick finally paid off. It just happened to be the championship game. So that was a very interesting game as well. So definitely some good things out of the week, right? Obviously we know it's dominating the headlines, but from a fantasy perspective, there were good things on the week to celebrate and be happy with as a fantasy owner to end your season.
Absolutely. And guys, we do have a great show for you tonight. We're going to hit up the Pine and Shine recaps here for week 17. We're going to get into our fantasy football award nominees here. So we'll kind of each nominate some guys here for some of the awards. We'll, of course, throw those out there in polls in various forms on the socials and let y'all vote on them, get you guys' opinions on that one. And then we'll hit up the Pine and Shine week 18 here and go from there. But again, guys, if you are playing in a week 18 championship, throw your questions out here. Let's go ahead and hit these things up. Let's get these things rocking and rolling there. Get you guys all the help that you need to try and bring home that last ship here in week 18. If you've got, maybe your league is over and we're looking at playing some DFS. You guys got some DFS questions, throw those out here. Let's get those done. Of course, you can find us on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. And if you're watching on anywhere else other than YouTube, do us a favor, head over to YouTube, click the subscribe button, ring that bell, get the notifications when we go live, and like the video, comment on it, all that good stuff. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into this a little bit for some Pine and Shine recap. Alex last week didn't get the dock filled out here, so we're going to hold that against him. And he swung for the fence and missed on that one. Kevin, how about you? How did your Pine go?
Sorry, I had to get off mute there. My Pine was not as great. I thought Kenneth Walker was going to struggle there in Seattle going up against the Jets. Finished right at he finished above projection and right at RB12. So he just made the RB1 cut for the week. Consensus ranked was 15. So it was a miss. It was a miss.
It was. It was one of those, though, that would have been interesting. Last night, I bet you that probably would have come closer to a push when it was all said and done, right? Like if we see a couple of other guys finish the week. So, it could have finished there a little bit different for you there too. But my Pine, I took Josh Jacobs, who was expert consensus ranked number 6 on the week. Really thought that entire Raiders defense or Raiders offense would get completely shut down by the Niners. They didn't, but Jacobs still managed to not have as great of a week as projected, finishing at RB9. So I'm going to take the hit on that one. It's going to move us to the Shine. And again, Alex missed that one, so we're going to hold that against him. And go ahead and tell me about your Shine, Kevin.
Devonta Smith going with Gardner Minshew again in a matchup that we thought was going to be a lot better for the Eagles against the Saints than what it turned out to be. But he was RB15, kind of the consensus ranking on the week, finished at 10. So he's inside the top 10. I'm counting that as a hit. So if you had Devonta Smith, you were happy with what you got.
Right. And last week I was telling everybody that Tyler Algier was ranked way too low and y'all were sleeping on him. You needed to make sure that he was in your lineups. He was expert consensus ranked 29th going into last week. He finished at RB 11 on that one. So that was a massive hit. So far in the season, that takes us to Alex is sitting at 16 and 14. Kevin, you're sitting at 17 and 14. And I am rocking out at, where'd that just go here? And I'm rocking out at 21, 9 and 4 right now. So the good news is that I didn't leave any suspense for us here going into week 18 on where that one's going to go. I managed to wrestle the crown away from you this year, Kevin.
You did, sir. I will have to come back with a vengeance because this year I did not feel good about my performance.
That's all right. I look forward to our battle here next year in 2023, and I'm sure the listeners and viewers will enjoy us trying to top each other here every week as we go through that one. So, but yeah, so far we'll see how that one comes to play. We've got one last pine and shine for the season here for Week 18 as it comes up here. But let's go ahead and hit up some of the fantasy awards and where we're looking at. We've got a couple of categories out there. So some of the categories we're looking at is an MVP, right? You can't talk about fantasy football without a fantasy football MVP. Who is the most valuable player for you? And we'll go through some of our thoughts on that one. We've got the draft darling, and this is one of those that, a couple of different ways you can look at this one, right? Like a guy that certainly, draft darling probably certainly outperformed his ADP. The way I always kind of look at that one, though, is a guy that you took in the later rounds and put up a monster performance for you and well exceeded his expectations you had on draft night for him. The buster, right? Obviously kind of self-explanatory. The guy that was a big bust for you and didn't come to play this season, didn't pan out for you. And then the waiver wire winner. So the WWW, always kind of one of my favorites, right? A guy that probably didn't get drafted, got drafted super late in real deep leagues, but a guy that most people would have picked up off the waiver wire and certainly put up a great performance for you throughout the course of the season. So let's go ahead and start over with the MVP side of it for fantasy football. And Alex has got his thoughts in here. He's coming out saying Mahomes needs to be up there for consideration on that one, or needs to be the nominee. He's got strong consideration for Jalen Hurts. But that when he's out during the playoffs, it's hard to go that route, he says. So he's going to throw up Mahomes. What about you, Kevin? Who's your nominee?
I'm going with Justin Jefferson. He was RB 1, 2, or 3, depending on how you had these guys ranked at the start of the season. Wrapped up, the fantasy season for what we're considering as the number one wide receiver. A dud in championship week, yes, I understand that hurt a lot of people, but most likely you wouldn't have even gotten there without Jalen Hurts playing the way he did in weeks 14, 15, and 16. So it was a really good season for him. We'll see what he does in week 18 to possibly break a couple extra milestones, but he was MVP for me, or what my vote is for MVP of the season for fantasy.
I like it. So my MVP, I'm going to take Austin Eckler, right? This was a guy that had extremely high draft capital in most leagues out there, and really starting off the first 3 weeks, disappointed on you. But if you manage to stick with it, you hung on there, came on with a vengeance going down the stretch and put up a ton of just, RB1 finishes, oftentimes finishing inside the top 5 type of performance. So week winning type of performances there. And in championship week, 28 points to finish that one off as RB1 on the week. So tough to knock a guy when he finishes strong for you and puts up that RB1 performance. And not just RB1, but the RB1 performance in week 17 in championship week there. So I'm taking Austin Eckler as the MVP as the nomination there. Anybody else we need to put up here as a strong consideration, write-in candidate. And again, the audience out there, if you've got some thoughts on this one, you want to throw somebody up there, let's get that in the chat. And the only place you can really put that in the chat right now is over on Twitch and over on YouTube. Hit us up over there. Let us know who you're thinking and who you want into these nominations here.
I think Tyreek Hill is a guy that could get put in that MVP type race. I think Jalen Hurts could be put in this MVP type race. And yes, in the playoffs, it definitely hurt with him going down. But same type of thing. You without Jalen Hurts, you would probably really struggle being in the championship at all. A little bit of quick trivia for you since you nominated Austin Eckler.
Okay.
Austin Eckler has scored to this point 18 total touchdowns this year and over 18 total touchdowns last year. Who is the last non-quarterback to score 18 or more touchdowns in back-to-back seasons?
I want to say it was Derrick Henry, but I don't think that's right.
Todd Gurley.
Huh. Imagine that you throw out a Georgia guy as a trivia contest there.
Right. So, but yeah, that was, found that to be interesting. So there you go. It doesn't happen too often, right? And like you said, people were sweating Eckler hard, right? Weeks 2, 3, we're answering a lot of tough questions about Austin Eckler. And I know you and I were both trying to trade for him in the home league, right?
Yep.
Like we were trying to capitalize on this low period. It didn't work out, but nevertheless, here we are. But yeah, so a couple different guys that could have been tossed it for the MVP. But I like our list. I think our short list is
right. And another guy out there that I don't think necessarily got quite the run because he faded a little bit down there through the stretch a little bit. But Saquon, right, was a guy that certainly came out and that's tough for me to say, right? I get it.
Tough.
I get it. But one of those that you got to give credit where credit's due, right? Like he certainly came through, put up some very big performances throughout. Certainly had a very great stretch there, and over 1,600 all-purpose yards.
Yeah, and I think Travis Kelce probably deserves to be in here as well, right? Yeah. Like number 1 tight end again. He is about 90 points ahead of the second place tight end right now. I know his game against Denver was better, but there for a little bit he was mediocre, right? Like, Travis Kelce's mediocre, but the consistency of Travis Kelce compared to the highs and lows of every other tight end, and you have a 90-point differential off the next closest player in that position. That is a huge advantage, and none of the rest of the guys that we listed can say that.
Nope. And here's something else. Tight end 1 puts him as wide receiver number 4 on the season, right? Like that is a monster type of differential there, and a massive positional difference at that realm there again. So you're right. I think Travis Kelce is a guy that we need to add in there, and we'll add him onto it as the right end candidate there. Alrighty. We do have a question coming in here. We'll hit that one up before we get into the draft darling nominations here. Spear IT down by 40, have Diggs and Chase in the championship. What are the chances, boys?
If the game gets played, if that's how you guys are doing it, if the game gets played, I think your chances are. I think you're probably batting about 50-50 if the game gets played. Now, that's just what we don't know, right? So, as we kind of talked about earlier, if you guys are waiting to play this out, then so be it. However your league's choosing to handle it. But in this head-to-head matchup, essentially, is what we were expecting. If this game gets replayed at some point, it is foreseeable that they're playing. It's playoff seeding, right? Like they are playing for something, and big time performances, right? Big guys show up in big time performances. It's possible you get 41 between the two of them, but I'd say it's about a 50-50 shot.
Realistically, and some of that depends on your scoring and all of that. But if you're using half-point PPR scoring, both of those guys average 15 points per game in half-point PPR scoring. So if you even just take their averages on that one, you're going to need one of them to have some big upside there, I think, to make that push there. So, Spirit T, some of that really does depend on what your format is and how you guys are running that as well. But I think I'm kind of right there with Kevin. I think that you're probably looking about a 50-50, kind of a coin flip on that one. Not a fan of being down by 40 and only having 2 guys to go, but both of those guys could deliver you some massive upside there to break that one. So tough to say, but I think 50-50 is probably a pretty accurate thought on that one. Alrighty, let's go ahead and head over to Draft Darling. Alex is going to throw up Austin Eckler as his draft darling. He says he's drafted high, delivered, kind of rare. Anyway, let's go ahead and head on over to your nominee here. Who are you putting up as the draft darling?
Jamal Williams, a guy who was drafted in the 13th, 14th round, was thought as a, just kind of a possible handcuff to DeAndre Swift, possibly a guy that you might have to plug and play because of an injury or a bye week or something like that, and is sitting at, I believe, RB 15 for the season. And I think, Derek, you have that, so please correct me if I'm wrong.
You're wrong. But it's 12.
12, even better.
12.5 point PPR scoring.
So there you go. So he's an RB1. What a great season from Jamal Williams. Came out of nowhere. Big time touchdown guy, helped get those even when the yardages weren't there, capped it off very nicely for you in Championship Sunday. But a guy who was all but written off. And if you were able to snag him late or pick him up off the waiver wire, depending on the size of your league and bench depth and all that good stuff, wow, what a nice, pleasant surprise that was, that helped you overcome injuries and deficiencies of an Alvin Kamara or Damian Pierce going down or DeAndre Swift not performing up to expectations, right? So he was able to fill in Kareem Hunt, right? People who thought Kareem Hunt was going to be, he filled so many roles that all things aside from where he was drafted, he was the total utility knife for your roster because of where you drafted him and the return that you were getting week in and week out.
Absolutely. So yeah, my draft darling, I took Ramondre Stevenson here. He had an ADP of 90 overall. He was the 36th running back off the board on average, and he finished as a top 12 back. Like, that's where he's looking to go through, at least through 17 weeks here. He's a top 12 back. I realized the last 2 weeks a little bit frustrating there, but over the course of the season, certainly put up some monster games and monster performances there, and had that kind of draft capital that you probably took him as your third or fourth running back in a lot of cases. So certainly playing out very, very well for you, and allowed for a lot of other draft maneuvering and roster maneuvering able there. Now, as far as the write-in here, is anybody that we may be missing here that we need to put in as a write-in? Again, everybody out there listening and watching, throw out your comments, throw out your nominees here for a draft darling, somebody that was taken late or certainly well exceeded their draft expectations.
Man, oh man. If you have one, go ahead and list them. I'm kind of racking my brain here at the moment.
One that could be out there would be a guy like Evan Ingram, right? Like, that was a guy that we said very early on that he could be at that late round tight end, right? Like, he was one of the guys we were talking about early on about that. So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Geno Smith, Jared Goff.
Yes. Yeah, I would say both of those guys.
Two guys that I would nominate as a write-in.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking, and Donovan Peoples-Jones times, but also had a lot of times where he's finishing like RB 36 or wide receiver 36. So I don't know that there's really much that we can put in on that one there. But no, I think we probably hit him up there besides some of those quarterbacks. So if you had to pick one, which one are you saying? So I'm probably leaning Goff.
I think I'm going to lean Goff as well.
Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and put him in there as the write-in candidate there, and then we'll head on over into the. I see Spear IT's comment there, just waiting for it to pop through. He's saying Ken Walker. If you put Ken Walker up there as a draft darling, I think he certainly kind of fits the bill there.
I think we need an extra category for like rookie of the year, and I would put him up there in that category. I think that there was more value in Stevenson, Williams, and Goff based off of where you drafted him comparative to the results than there was Kenneth Walker. There was hype coming around Walker and Breece Hall.
Okay. New category just added. Thank you, Spear IT, for helping us out with that one. Rookie of the year. We'll get discussing that one. And Ken Walker is already nominated there. So we'll talk about that here in a moment.
So go back to Spear IT's comment before the Kenneth.
I was just getting there as well. So He is saying that it was a full point PPR for the Diggs and the Chase. So I think that probably moves it to more of a 50-50, maybe 55. But
what platform are you playing in, bud? Like that,
Right.
that's going to determine, because if it's Yahoo or ESPN, I haven't seen anything at all and what they're trying to do with this. My fantasy league, I think, just said it is what it is.
Right.
So I think it's RT Sports and Sleeper at the moment are the only two giving the option to.
He said it's ESPN.
It's ESPN. Okay. So I haven't seen anything from ESPN. Now, not that they won't release it, and not that they won't try and get their team, right, to rewrite the algorithms and be able to do something like that. That's possible, but I can't guarantee that. So at the moment, based off of what we haven't seen from ESPN, I'm afraid to say that you came up short.
Right.
Now, that could change tonight, tomorrow, Thursday, depending on what's going on. They might be waiting for the NFL to announce whether the game's going to get played at all, to make a decision on that. So all those are possibilities, but because we don't have that information, the 0% chance is accurate, because ESPN has not made a decision on what they would offer if this game does get made up.
Right. So there's certainly that as well. And just kind of going back to what we talked about earlier and what we said earlier, that even if you're the league manager, the commissioner, all of that kind of stuff, this is one of those that you guys as a league need to ultimately decide on how you guys are going to navigate this and how you want to go through this. Right now, I've seen several different leagues do several different things, right? Allow a substitution for those players to come through, as long as it's would make sense type of thing, right? Like you didn't just get to pick the guy that was, the bottom of the barrel guy that you had sitting on your roster that blew up type of thing to punch and play in there, right? Like somebody that you would have legitimately probably played had they been injured or had you known that game wasn't going to go, right? Like those types of moves. I've seen it where the two finalists have decided that they're just going to split it and be co-champions on the year. I've seen that one. I've seen where leagues have decided that as it currently sits, that's what it is, and that's the outcome, and that's the championship. There's no right answer on this one. The right answer is how you guys as a league decide to finalize this, or how you decide to move forward in this one as well. And that's one of those that I would say, all the and I'll answer it from this standpoint as well. All the leagues that I've managed and all the leagues that I'm the commissioner of, I am putting it to a vote on that one. Now, some of these things, neither of the folks had anybody playing in it, or they had one that was playing, but it was so far lopsided on that one that Mike Evans' score this past week would have been baby numbers compared to what they needed out of a Jamar Chase or a Stephon Diggs, where you're talking 200 yards and 3 touchdown type of performance to get it though. So there is some of that comes into that. It says current matchup pairings will be expanded, and they'll provide more information when it's available. How do I change it though? And Mike Evans was on my bench, by the way. Oh,
I don't blame you. And that was the right decision going into the week, right? Like Mike Evans had not been playing well. You have Chase and Diggs. Like your decision was sound. ESPN. If ESPN said, I hadn't seen that, so kudos for them putting that out there. If they're going to extend it, then you just kind of have to sit on it and wait, and they'll provide more information when it's available. When in doubt, they do have a hotline number for fantasy sports. They have it hidden on the website, not on the app. It's on the website. You have to go digging for it. But they do have a hotline that you can call that they'll be able to answer some of those questions. But my guess is they're not going to be able to tell you anything until the NFL declares what they're going to do about this game. So you have to wait at least until then. And based off of what the NFL says, ESPN and possibly other platforms will react accordingly, and then you would have to ask your question.
Right. And so that is very accurate there. So Spear IT, I hate to tell you that unfortunately we don't really have an answer for you on that one. It's a kind of a wait and see kind of scenario that you're dealing with over there, and we'll just have to, hopefully by Friday when we go live, you can tell us what you guys have either decided as a league, or we have more information to help maybe try and guide and navigate and give our advice on that one as well. So that's kind of where I think that one's at. Any other thoughts on this?
No, I think that's all we know at the moment, man.
All right. So let's go ahead and hit up the Buster then, and we'll go ahead and move back into our nominees here. The Buster, and that is as much as what it sounds like. The player that busted for fantasy this year, Alex throwing out there Jonathan Taylor, but a lot of it was because of injuries, things like that. So he threw up a non-injury disappointment guy in Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I think both of those are extremely viable, right? Like I listed Cam Akers right away. Michael Thomas is another one. Spear IT, not Najee Harris. Yep. Up until the last couple weeks, and he showed some signs of life. Najee Harris is one of those guys drafted as an RB1 who is sitting just inside RB3 territory in half-point PPR. Seemingly more running backs than receivers. Receivers seem to hold up pretty well, but Kyle Pitts is one. Yes, injury kind of took the last chunk out, but he was terrible before he went on IR. So there's another one. If you're going off the back half of the season, Mark Andrews, right? I mean, this list goes on and on this year, and I felt like last year's was a long list. I think this year tops it.
Uh-huh.
Like, receivers managed to hold their own, I felt like. Like, Cooper Kupp was playing well until he got hurt, so you can't consider that a bust. Lamb started slow, then picked up. He did great. Diggs has been consistent. Jefferson laid a turd in the finals, but was great all year long. Tyreek was great.
Chase was really good when he was
good.
Healthy.
Devontae Adams was not as elite as we had seen him in years past, but still held wide receiver 1 numbers. So, the receivers overall kind of held their own. The disappointment's coming on the running back side. And I think we'll get into this in some of the offseason and everything else. It really feels like unless you can hit right on these running backs, the RB heavy strategy, I think, needs to go out the window. And that is a strategy that I have subscribed to for years. But I think it's time to pivot, and it's time to look at Travis Kelce or one of these top 5 wide receivers and get your hands on guys that will consistently be able to put up points, maybe not quite the injury risk that some of these running backs are going between the tackles, because we've been able to pick up guys, right? And it's been serviceable.
Right. Who did you have out there as your buster candidate?
My buster was Cam Akers. Like, absolutely nothing until the last 2 weeks. Right. I mean, terrible performance all season long, and then he showed a glimpse there in the playoffs. But overall, you drafted him to be your RB2 or RB1 in some cases, depending on your strategy, and hell, you dropped him. Right? You just flat out dropped him. You didn't even wait and see to what came in most scenarios.
Who knew that it took Baker Mayfield to unlock Cam Akers?
Right. Well, and to some extent, yeah, because it goes back to McVay's natural offense, right? Cam Akers is a good running back in Sean McVay's natural offense. He is not a good running back in Matthew Stafford's version of Sean McVay's offense.
Right. My buster that I'm going to nominate out there is DeAndre Swift, a guy that I had very, very high expectations for on the season. Really thought that we would see this be, that all-purpose, dynamic, like a guy that could have given Austin Eckler a run for his money as far as fantasy points produced this year, and that certainly didn't happen. So some of that's my expectations going into that, but DeAndre Swift was still a first-round pick, RB8 overall, RB8 off the board in most cases, and really only gave you like 5 usable weeks for fantasy all season long, and 2 of them were in the very first week. or the very first 2 weeks, and then it was 3 over the course of weeks 13 through 17. So very rough sledding with him if you're a Cam or DeAndre Swift manager there. Now, we had a couple of write-in candidates pop up there. Let's narrow that down. Do we want to go with the Najee Harris, or do we want to go with the Kyle Pitts?
I would say Kyle Pitts. Najee was getting you points all season long. It wasn't RB1 numbers. It was closer to flex numbers. But Kyle Pitts wasn't even usable.
Yeah. I think you make a great point there, and I'll come down on that side of the fence with you on that one. So, all right, let's go ahead and head on over here to our next category here, and that is the waiver wire winner, the WWW. So waiver wire winner, right? Somebody that was out there that somebody that was out there on the waiver wire you picked up and had an immediate and long-term impact for your fantasy roster, and certainly managed to come down the stretch for you. Like last year, some extremely strong candidates in Devin Singletary and Rashad Penny for this one. This one, I didn't feel like we necessarily had as strong candidates, but still some really good ones. Alex throwing out there that Greg Dortch was his waiver wire winner candidate here.
Yeah, I'm going to say Evan Ingram. Tight end 3 on a season where tight ends outside of Travis Kelce and TJ Hawkinson kind of really after the trade, but I mean, even before he was serviceable, I guess, in most weeks. But I'm going to say Evan Ingram, especially after the bye week. He propelled or lifted your team if you were in a playoff push to the playoffs. Another guy who didn't have the greatest week 17, but he got you into that ship and really put that jolt into a position that can make all the difference in the world for you when they pop. And Evan Ingram did pop in weeks 14, 15, and 16.
Yeah, I could see that. I like it. Jerick McKinnon was my waiver wire winner, right? Like this was a guy that didn't, it was ADP 228. So a guy that on most cases was not drafted, was sitting out there on the waiver wire, certainly was sitting on the waiver wire through the majority of the season. And really you started looking at maybe going his way around week 7, 8, kind of in that range there. Currently sitting at RB 21 on the year. So a guy that you were able to pick up and has really produced big numbers over the last couple of weeks here and over the last quarter of the season, last half of the season. So I'm going to go with Jerick McKinnon as my nominee for the waiver wire winner. If you guys have any other comments, any other thoughts on who the waiver wire winner should be, certainly throw that out there. Let's talk about it. Let's get that going. A comment coming in here from Spear IT saying that he doesn't care about his championship, just wants Damar to be okay. Absolutely. Let's all hope for his quick and speedy recovery and that he is all right. Spear IT also says Justin Fields for me for a waiver wire winner. Yeah, I could certainly see that if you're in a single QB league.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people have given up on him and kind of dropped him there in that first half. Had the injury early, right, and a little slow performance. Then picked it up late, inside the top 10 for quarterbacks right now. So he absolutely served his purpose.
Right. So yeah, if you have any other thoughts out there, let's hit those things up. Let's throw those out there as far as who you guys think the waiver wire winner should be. Any other thoughts here for this category?
Christian Watson is a name that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And I know that I had him in the home league and I ended up dropping him because I had Lazard too. And at one point I had Dobbs and the Packers offense wasn't doing anything. And I let him go. You picked him up, actually.
You and I played rotating chairs, musical chairs with Dobbs and Watson. Because I had Watson at one point, dropped him, you picked him up, and then dropped him, and I picked him back up again. And Alex had Watson to start the season there as well. Yeah. Same thing with Dobbs. Like you and I picked him up, dropped him, and it just kind of rotated around there, it seemed like.
Yeah, absolutely. But Christian Watson had a great stretch, right? Kind of in the middle of the season, helped get you through bye weeks and was extremely important in those weeks, was putting up massive wide receiver numbers, all the touchdowns. Really seemed like him and Rodgers were gaining traction there for a little while. It's cooled off a little bit for sure, but I think there for that 4 or 5 week stretch, Christian Watson allowed you to navigate all these bye weeks because the Packers bye was so late in the season that by the time he hit his bye week, you didn't need him anymore. And then he fell off. But he got you through the pain of bye weeks by putting up great performances.
Yeah, now here's another one for you. Would you say Christian Watson, or would you look more at like a Zay Jones?
Watson.
Okay.
Watson's the sexy name. I'm okay with going sexy on this one because Zay Jones, not that people don't know who Zay Jones is, but he is not a popular pick, and people are going to look at that and go, yeah, I'm not messing with that.
Fair enough. I was looking at this, kind of season long finish there. Zay Jones top 24, finishing right at or right now is at wide receiver 24, whereas Christian Watson is running wide receiver 38 when it's all said and done. So it was one of those that he outperformed him, by 14 spots there. So I just wanted to make sure that we, threw that name out there and talked about it.
He did, but you put the two of them on the waiver wire at any point in the season. Zay Jones and Watson side by side, we were all picking up Watson, hoping that he hit.
That's
Zay
fair.
Jones was, okay, there's no one else here on the waiver wire. I'm going to pick him up and see what he does. And, oh, my gosh, he put up, 12 points again.
Right. And this is one that we could see Christian Watson's name in this next category as well. So Rookie of the Year. Spear IT threw out there Kenneth Walker, and we added that one already. But if you guys have any other thoughts or comments on who else should be in the Rookie of the Year candidate there for fantasy, let us know who that is. Kevin, who you got as a nominee for this one?
I like the Kenneth Walker pick. It's really unfortunate that Breece Hall got injured because I think Breece Hall would have been kind of running away with this at the moment. But I kind of have a bunch of receivers lined up. Watson, Olave, George Pickens. Like, Pickens is probably option number 4 on this list, a large part due to how that Pittsburgh offense runs. But nevertheless, he did serve purpose through bye weeks, and you're able to kind of plug him in. If you played him on the right week, you got, 12, 15 points out of him, and you're pretty happy about it.
Yeah, Olave was definitely the guy that I would be nominating up there. Yes.
Tyler Algier. That's who I want. That's who I want. Because he actually has more points this season than Kenneth Walker, for those of you interested in that little tidbit. So
yes, he does. That'll be interesting what I decide to do with this fantasy roster of mine and these keeper leagues.
right.
So Tyler Algier could be a last round pick for me. So I could very well sort up my running backs for my second to last round pick. So we'll have to see how that one comes out. But yeah, I like the Chris Olave. We've got Kenneth Walker, Chris Olave, Tyler Algier. If anybody else has a one to throw in the chat for this one, let's go ahead and do that one. If not, I think do we double nominate Christian Watson, or do we go with the George Pickens pick?
Oh man, hold on. Time for quick research.
All right.
As my app doesn't load. Go figure. Right?
Never.
As soon as you need it, you're trying to get stuff done, and here you look like a bozo because you're not prepared. And nothing's loading on Sleeper. Here we go. Trying to buy time.
You're doing brilliant. Just keep it up.
Heck, man. One of those things.
And this is also kind of illustrates the point on Garrett Wilson is a guy that we could put up there as well.
There we go. That's Dameon Pierce is another guy that we could put up there.
All right, so we got to make a choice between Garrett Wilson, Dameon Pierce. Who is it going to be?
I'm going to say Garrett Wilson.
That's where I'm going to lean as well, since Dameon Pierce wasn't able to finish out the season on that one either. Certainly kind of hurt some of that voting stock there, I think. But anyway, I think that'll hit up and kind of wrap up the nominees here for the fantasy awards. And again, guys, if you have any other comments, we'll put all of these guys on all these polls, all of that on the on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. I want to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on those. Hit us up. Let us know. Did we miss somebody? Of course, let us know. All those good things. Let's talk about those. We'll leave those polls up, and I think next week we'll probably come back and announce the winners of those, and see who you guys really like and decided on that as well, and let everybody know what the voting looked like. So that's where that one kind of sits. Let's go ahead and head on over into the Week 18 Pine and the Shine, and this is the last Pine and Shine for the season here. And then we'll get into some of the fun little games that we play during the playoff push and all that kind of good stuff. But Alex missing out on his Pines and Shines on this one, so he's going to finish the season 500. It's been decided. 16-16 for Alex. All right, Kevin, why don't you go ahead and hit us up with your Pine. Let us know who you think and here.
Ramondre Stevenson. This Patriots offense is reeling. He's had 2 back-to-back poor weeks where he just hasn't seen the volume, has not been falling in the end zone, is not being used as much in the passing game here in this past couple weeks, and I think that is what has in part contributed to his lack of fantasy performance. But Patriots don't have anything to do they? Are they still a dark horse? Do they still have odds, or are they out now?
I'll have to look that one
up. I believe that they have long odds still, so it's possible, but they need a whole lot of help. Regardless of Stevenson, Pine.
I could certainly see that one. My Pine is a guy that just came off of a really good showing there, and I'm going to call for Travis Etienne to have a Pine. They're going up against Tennessee. Tennessee's been really, really tough against the run, and I think you'll see Trevor Lawrence show up in a big way this coming week. I do think that Jacksonville manages to clinch that division when it's all said and done here. But, let's go ahead and I'm looking at trying to see what the 7 seed. So, the Patriots, here's the playoff scenario for the Patriots. The Patriots clinch with a win at the Bills or a Dolphins loss for the Jets and a Steelers loss versus the Browns and a Jaguars win versus the Titans. So, man, they need to win and have the Steelers lose and the Jaguars win. So they've got a lot of things to play out there on that one.
Yeah, not impossible, possibly unlikely though.
I like that. Possibly unlikely sounds about right. So anyway, let's go ahead and we'll head into the shines, and we got shine for Week 18. Alex, rocking and rolling a knot there. What do you got on your shine this week?
Aaron freaking Rodgers. Through all the turmoil, through all the ho-hum season, the Packers still control their own destiny into the playoffs. Win and you're in. It's that simple. Going up against the Lions, a team that Aaron Rodgers has owned over the course of his career, and it's win and in. And he's going to have to he's going to have to show out. So I'm taking Aaron Rodgers as my shine this week.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I'm rooting for the Lions on that one.
I'm rooting for the Lions. I'd like to see him win, but I'm gonna take what's likely here.
I hear you. My shine, right? I just got done is a teammate of Travis Etienne. I'm doubling down on this Jacksonville team, and I'm gonna take Christian Kirk to be the shine on this one. Right now he's wide receiver 16 as far as consensus ranking goes. I think that we'll probably see him get wide receiver 1 when this thing's all said and done. Not going to surprise me to see him get into the end zone with probably about 60, 70 yards on the through the air on that one as well. So I think that he's in for a great week here. Alrighty, so that's going to go ahead and take us down to the end of the pine, the shine. Any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Final thoughts. The Bills Mafia might be the greatest fan base of all time.
Yes.
And it's not just this. Like, they've done similar things for team charities, for other players' charities. They really just rise above. And They care about the game. They care about the players on a deeper level than most fans do. So my final thought is Bills Mafia, greatest fan base of all time. And I will happily put you through one of their tables if you disagree.
I like it. Yeah, and that was one of the nice things there to see as well, was the fact that, even with the midst of everything going on and all the, the tragedy that we saw unfold out last night, was the way that, especially the Bills Mafia and the NFL community as a whole kind of rallied around, a cause for, what Damar Hamlin has as far as his foundation, things like that. Like, they had a goal of $2,500 to give some toys to kids, and they were in the millions. Last I checked, I believe
It's
the last
over 5 million
Yep.
now.
I was gonna say last time I checked, I saw it had passed 4.5 million, and that had been a couple hours ago. So
Yeah, it's over 5 million. His goal, $2,500. It wasn't even at $2,500 at kickoff last night.
Right.
So in the span of 28-ish hours, they have raised $5 million. And I contribute a lot of it. Some of the players, right? Some of the players have donated, some of the owners have donated, but it's Bills Mafia who's the catalyst for that. And that brings hope that our society can find ways to get along.
Right. Well, you also saw too that his jersey became the #1 seller on Fanatics in the last 24 hours as well. And Fanatics has come out and said that they're going to donate all the proceeds to his charity there as well. So
I missed that. That's really cool. Good for them.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really, it's one of those that, again, it kind of shows you the power of sports to bring people together. And in this case, it's unfortunate that it was a tragedy that caused everybody to kind of bond together and come together and proceed to go out there and really do some good on this one. But I think you're right. The Bills Mafia, they just do things different up there, and kudos to them for certain. So, but I think that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for us. And we're going to do the Friday show. This will be the last Friday show where we're going through and we're getting all of our picks in for the weekend slate. We'll answer any final questions out there that you guys have for your fantasy championship, if you're playing in a Week 18 championship. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, in the meantime, you can hit us up on all those socials: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. And we'll be live back here again for you on Twitter, on Twitch, and of course on the YouTube. The YouTube channel is the best way to support this independent podcast. Head over there, click the subscribe button, youtube.com/@GoodOldBoysFF. And I think that's going to do it for us. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.